Right now at 6, a first step toward closing the gap, what the county's now opening that it hasn't had in over 5 years.
Those individuals will no longer be taken to the emergency room or to the jail or left on the street.
Then, parents weigh in on Portland Public Schools' proposed cuts as district leaders try to balance the books.
I can't imagine how these teachers can do it with even less support.
Plus, goodbye garbage and graffiti, but are writers noticing any real difference?
TriMet's really trying to enhance their cleaning to help with bring back the public.
And banking on a booming summer, the events city leaders hope will get people flocking to the heart of downtown Portland.
Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. First tonight, Multnomah County taking a much-needed step toward tackling recovery in our region with over a dozen new sobering beds set to open at a temporary location on Southeast Sandy.
Devin Haskins is live in the Buckman neighborhood. Devin, Portland hasn't had a 24/7 option like this in years.
Yeah, that's right, David and Christine. These 13 new sobering beds are housed in the county's deflection center. It's a temporary setup for now. It's here in the Buckman neighborhood, and it's the first ones that the county's had since a center closed in 2019. The facility is open 24/7 and serves as a drop-off point for law enforcement to bring people who are under the influence and need to sober up. Before this, officers often had to choose between jail, an emergency room at a hospital, or simply leaving someone on the street. The new beds provide a safe space for people to stabilize and begin connecting to recovery.
The hope is to encourage the clients that come in for deflection to go into sobering. Now, again, sobering is for 24 hours. Okay, and so that gives us more time to get to know the patient and to connect them to treatments out there. That's the biggest piece that we didn't have in deflection.
A more permanent center is expected to open in the fall of 2027 on Southeast Grand with up to 50 beds. That is expected to open up a year later than was previously planned in 2027. Back to you.
Devin Haskins in Southeast Portland tonight. Thanks, Devin.
In your headlines, Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield is again taking the Trump administration to court, this time in an effort to block President Trump's tariffs. 11 other states have also signed on to the lawsuit. They allege President Trump's executive orders setting new tariffs should not be allowed to take place without the approval of Congress. They argue consumers will ultimately pay the tariffs in the form of higher prices. In a statement, Rayfield said, quote, "These tariffs hit every corner of our lives, from the checkout line to the doctor's office, and we have a responsibility to push back." We'll have much more on this lawsuit coming up at 6:30 on The Story.
Oregon's Silicon Forest is bracing for another round of layoffs, with Bloomberg now reporting Intel is planning an additional 20% cut to its global workforce. The report says layoffs are part of a broader strategy to refocus on an engineering-driven structure under Intel's new CEO. In October, the company made a 15% across-the-board reduction, resulting in 1,300 workers in Oregon losing their jobs. It's unclear how many local employees will be out of work this time. We've reached out to Intel for comment, but haven't yet heard back.
And this evening, we have updated results from Washington's special election in Clark County. In Hawkinson, the levy aimed at school safety improvements continues to trail by about 9 percentage points, or about 300 or so votes. In Battleground, a levy meant to fund student educational programs and improve student safety had a 4-point lead for the no vote last night. Today, that is down to 2 points, about a 500 vote spread. And meantime, a majority of votes counted in Camas and Washougal have said no to a proposed taxing district known as a regional fire authority. A reminder, these are preliminary early results, which means they can change. Election results will not be certified until May 2nd.
And Oregon state senators have voted to repeal a controversial wildfire hazard map and the property regulations that went with it. The map, introduced after the 2020 wildfires, mandated new property maintenance rules to lower fire risk for people living in high-risk areas. Insurance companies were eventually barred from using the map to hike premiums, but many said their insurance went up anyway and the rules were too costly and burdensome. The bill to scrap it now heads to the House. Matt?
All right, David, thanks very much. So as we go into the warmer months of the year, it's good to look at the outlook for, in this case, May, June, and July in regards to our wildfire season that's coming up, of course. In May, June, and July, forecasts to have better than normal odds, have above average temperatures here in the Northwest, especially in Oregon. Now, this is the early part of wildfire season. The real crux of the matter is typically August into early September, late July. So we'll see how it shakes out, but the forecast is for very warm and very dry. The forecast also, the outlook calls for better than average chances of below average rainfall here in the Northwest too. So we'll keep an eye on that. We're in good shape right now. Our snowpack was healthy. Our rainfall has been good. But you never know how the lightning is going to go, if we get thunderstorms, or what human behavior will do, as most wildfires are now human caused. Now, we have seen an increase in the number of what we call fire weather days. That's days where you have hot weather, low humidity, and gusty winds. It's an analysis done by our friends at Climate Central. And since 1973, we've seen an increase in parts of Oregon of 7 to 14 days more of what we consider wildfire days or fire weather days. So we'll keep an eye on this, of course, in the months ahead, guys.
Appreciate you keeping us posted. Thank you, Matt. Now at 6, Oregon's largest school district is facing a major budget deficit to the tune of $40 million.
And now we're hearing from parents at Portland Public concerned about some of the jobs and services that could be on the line. Celine Stevens is in the newsroom with the details. Celine?
David, Christine, so the district said today it's dealing with a $40 million deficit, and this proposed $2 billion budget will begin to address that through cuts to staff, programs, and classes. However, these cuts are leaving many concerned.
I feel bad, especially for the teachers. That's a lot on them.
We have a lot of kids who are ready to learn and need those resources. And so it's just sad to see that some of that might be going away.
A big part of the latest proposal is cuts to positions at schools and the central office for next school year. Superintendent Kimberly Armstrong breaks down what those staff reductions look like.
We're now looking at school-based reductions of about 156.7 FTE, a central office reduction of 85.5 for a total staffing reduction of 242.2.
She says this means they would be ending programs like their International Baccalaureate program at the elementary level, blending certain classrooms like 4th and 5th graders, and eliminating most classes with 15 or fewer students for certain grade levels.
He's already in classes that have almost 30 kids. So, I mean, if I can't imagine how these teachers can do it.
So our expenses to run schools continue to exceed the revenue that we receive, and the gap is only widening.
PPS says their enrollment has continued to decline in recent years, impacting revenue as costs escalate. Those represented by the teachers union aren't facing layoffs, but what's called unassignments.
Unassignments mean that they are unassigned from the building they currently work in or the site or program, and will have to make up the rest of their staffing week at a different site.
President of the Portland Association of Teachers, Angela Bonilla, says this will impact the students and teachers negatively.
So what we're going to see are educators who are running from one building to another to try to teach all the students throughout the day or the week. We're going to see students having a harder time finding their educators, especially in the middle and high school levels.
Federal funding concerns also impacting the district, leaving them wary of more future cuts.
For our Title I fund, we have held back 25% in anticipation of any reductions. Once we know that Title I is fully funded in our federal government's budget, we will make sure that those funds are sent back out to schools.
Again, this is just a preliminary proposed budget. You'll have a chance to weigh in at a public comment session next Tuesday at 6 p.m. at Grant High School. Back to you.
Some difficult decisions ahead. Celine Stevens reporting. Thank you, Celine.
Well, to the City of Portland budget now and a $93 million shortfall. This afternoon, City Administrator Michael Jordan announcing he is targeting a 20% cut across core city services in the next fiscal year. Those include communications, engagement, equity, human resources, tech. Yes, it is a long list. Procurement and finance, staff reductions, contracts, and expenditures here all on the table. Well, meanwhile, a new poll commissioned by City Council asked Portlanders, 600 Portlanders, some of the trade-offs and where they'd be willing to cut. Let's take a first look at the first one here. This is cuts to police from DHM Research. 42 approving of some sort of cut to PPB, 55 disapproving. We're going to move through them here one by one. Housing and homelessness. Okay, this is tricky because a lot of this is funded by the county, right? 38% in theory approving some sort of cut, 60% disapproving. Moving on down the list here. Parks and Rec, 28% only approving, 71% disapproving there. And finally, Last but not least, cuts to fire and rescue, just 17% saying yes, they tolerate it, while 81% saying don't make cuts to the fire department. Against 600 Portlanders here. The poll done by DHM Research and commissioned and released today by Council President Alana Pirtle-Guinea and Councilor Steve Novick. We'll keep you updated.
TriMet is making a system-wide push to clean its MAX platforms and trains in an effort to improve the rider experience. They've also brought more employees on board to clean up trash and graffiti. Our John Adams is live outside the Goose Hollow MAX station in Southwest Portland for us this evening. So, John, when did this increased effort all start?
Yeah, Christine, the effort started back in 2024, and part of this is in hopes of trying to bring back some of the riders that maybe stopped riding TriMet during the COVID-19 pandemic. Riders that I spoke to today say they've noticed a difference. Riders at Portland area MAX stations may have noticed more power washing and trash cleanup in recent months. Members of TriMet's clean team have been hard at work since the beginning of last year.
15 people that have come in, new jobs that have come on just for more detailed cleaning.
David Paw is a platform cleaner with TriMet. He tells us the extra manpower has allowed crews to deep clean and detail every stop once a month, something that wasn't possible before. Crews now start early in the morning cleaning and detailing platforms and finish the day working on the interior of trains.
They do wipe downs of seats, they clean, sweep up, they mop spills, and it kind of gives us a better overall appearance.
An increase in numbers has also allowed crews to keep an upper hand on graffiti that may appear throughout the day and night. The hope is that clean platforms and trains will make people feel safer on board.
If you keep everything clean, it helps with the security too. You know, and people associate it with, it's a more secure area because they keep it clean.
Riders we spoke with appreciate the endeavor.
It makes me feel good just to know that they're out there trying to make an effort, trying to clean up the graffiti and stuff.
And have noticed a difference.
Recently, I have noticed an uptick in cleanliness in some of the stations, especially like here in Goose Hollow.
Pa hopes the changes will convince former riders to give the transit system another shot.
Jump on, you haven't done it 4 or 5 years. Look and see what the effort's been.
Well, TriMet does encourage riders to call in and report if a MAX station needs to be cleaned or if it needs to have graffiti cleaned up. Back to you.
John Adams reporting live from Southwest Portland. Thank you so much, John.